We lost a guy, a German adult. She was one of them. And so we will miss her. More than that. We'll miss her.
Last one, Dr.
My mentor, my intercessor, my prayer partner, my best friend, my business partner, my advisor. Everything that I am up to now is because of Mom. The strength that she showed during her illness will be the roadmap of my strength. I don't know how this is going to be, but I know that she believed in me enough to take this. God-fearing person, a kind-hearted person, and most of all, a mother to all. Her love for us never faltered. It was not selfish, nor did it ever lack or leave us want. May the grace of the Lord be with her, even as we lay her down to rest today, and may her soul rejoice in union with Christ. We love her now and forever.
My dear fellow mourners, it is not very easy to read the life history of a dear beloved woman. My name is Reverend Simon Phiri, and the one who left us was a dear one, was a sister to me. He was somebody that was very close to me, very dear to me since I was a little girl. And she saw me up to this time. Never changed her love for me. Even when she was sick, she managed to tell me that she loved me. Our dear Esther Phiri was born on 15 August 1956 in the Eastern Province. She was the firstborn of a large family. It was a family of 11. The children of Ireland and Esther Tembo. Meaning she has left us at the age of 65. She did her primary education in the Eastern Province and did her secondary education in Mufrila. She worked for various organizations. She worked for UZ. I'm sure that's where she met the love of her life. Because I remember when I was a little girl, my mom was working for UZ. And she went for various government ministries. Before she retired, at the time of her retirement, she was the secretary to the principal at the Kitwe College of Education. And I'm sure because of the love of her family, you'll find that most of our little ones and her siblings are teachers. She created and made a lot of teachers in the teaching industry because she encouraged the young ones to go into the teaching profession. She was a teacher because she was a mentor to most of us. She taught us the love of God. And we thank God that her dear husband is still a pastor. And therefore, even at the time of her death, she was the minister's wife. When you go to her home, the Phiri's home, we used to call Esther at the pastor, a family. When we were sitting at the family, we'd say, pastor, she would tell us, oh, that's the woman she was. But she started a church, at the Reformed Church of Zambia. And then up to now she was at Bread of Life as a member of the church and the minister's wife. She's survived by her dear husband and 4 children. She's left 7 grandchildren who she loved dearly. She lived for them. She had a special relationship with each of her grandchildren. Her cause of death was hypertension. May the sweet soul, my dear sister, rest in eternal peace. Amen.
And that is not for Jehovah God. We speak the blood of Jesus upon his life, Jehovah God. In the mighty name of Jesus, Jehovah God. Let the blood of Jesus, Jehovah God. Wewe
upon the representative for Mr. Phiri, that is Mr. Sostan Banda. Kwa hiyo kwambira ponde itaba Sostan Banda awabale zina konfolala. Kwa hiyo lelo koko bataza iko the names. Tule chitako kwa mfianya na mumona what is happening. Zambia twalokwa. Especially the Easterners, after Mr. Banda, may I call upon all the children and their spouses. The children and their spouses. After the children and their spouses, Auntie Fanny and Auntie Lile and their spouses. After the children and their spouses, Pakonke, Auntie Fanny and Auntie Lile, nephews and nieces to the late. Kubayashi. I invite you. This is our funeral. Members, where are you hiding? Now tell us our country before you can come.
Latika kukulusaka ndempembela pantwale bomba ati hostess igenshita vale moneka fulu vale bomba ku Zambia Airways. So I would like to have that picture of me waiting for her, that my cousin is coming from Lusaka. Nomba njikala ku Lusaka. Ine John Njovu. Bambi mwe bati nchofu. This picture is not what I would love to have in my memory, because for 6 decades I've been with this woman. But now when I left Yalwa in 78, I saw all these children coming in. I wouldn't love to have this picture, but it's part of a prophecy. When my Mlamu gave me this note, I didn't want to come here, but she had said, Ngana fine. Okay. The eulogy of Mrs. Esther Tembo Phiri. She was a heroine and trendsetter in the Nyalugwe family. She was among the earliest Nyalugwe females to get a formal job after independence. When UBZ introduced Koche, she was employed as a hostess. To many of us who were there, the coaches in the 1970s were like airplanes. Her husband, Mr. Simon Phiri, was the manager for Kitwe United Bus of Zambia Depot, UBZ. They got married in 1976 and she became a housewife. UBZ, like many parastatals, was closed during the entry into government by the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD, as a ruling party in 1991. The change of economic policies from socialist to liberalized economy adversely affected many Zambian citizens. Her husband suddenly found himself unemployed. He was left with a big company house in Nkana East as an uncertain terminal of benefit, but without any cash. Many public servants, based on the aftermaths of the sales of parastatals, now strive to have multiple streams of income. Miss Phiri threw herself back into formal employment when her husband became unemployed. She, however, could not fit into the income shoes of her husband. She had a low education and her income therefore was meager. Her whole life was centered on her husband and children. As the family was thrown into destitution, many friends and relatives that she thought she could lean on vanished from the social circle. She therefore started to struggle with the anxiety of taking care of her husband and her growing 5 children and the adverse effects of modern culture on them. She worried about the welfare of one of her daughters, who had become a single mother. She also worried about alcohol abuse among the youths and obviated its adverse effects on her children. She had to battle the daily struggles to find food, fuel, and funds to keep her home running as normal as possible. Her husband's spells of ill health afterwards also became a source of her worries. Many former employees of parastatals that had lived from paycheck to paycheck at that time and were thrown into poverty by the restructuring were to suffer from depression and die. Many did not receive the terminal benefits. Marriages had increasingly broken up and children became, some of them, uncontrollable due to financial challenges post-1991. She feared that her family would become another casualty statistic of public policies and threw herself into keeping her marriage and family intact. As many families' lives spiraled into poverty, the Phiris, like many Zambians, left the Protestant church, the Reformed Dutch Church of Zambia, and joined the Pentecostal movement to seek for divine interventions. The Pentecostal churches during the national economic crisis of 1980s and 1990s attracted many Zambians to leave the traditional churches as they promised heaven on earth, the restoration of affected people's health, better social and economic statuses, and an increase in wealth. The Phiris became part of fervent worshippers praying for long hours, sometimes in overfilled rooms with poor ventilation, and Miss Phiri supported her husband's dream of becoming a pastor in the rising church movement. Though herself financially struggling, she sacrificed and sponsored him to South Africa for his priesthood training in 2001-2002. On his return, he became a pastor in Bread of Life Church. It looked like God had answered their prayers. However, other challenges emerged. Old age and its challenges were catching up with them. Both of them started to experience health challenges. The eldest daughter, Tamara, also developed diabetes and passed on in April 2021 and left them with a granddaughter to care for. At the beginning of the millennium, and while her husband was unemployed, she had started to show signs of the stresses of life, high blood pressure. After her husband got back into formal employment, she started to experience fainting spells. It was also a time of the HIV/AIDS pandemic. She therefore went for several HIV tests that proved negative. However, she was diagnosed with having both high blood pressure and diabetes. The most devastating blow to her family was that her husband was also diagnosed with the beginning of chronic forgetfulness, dementia. He also had challenges that could not allow him to stand for a long time at church. Though advised to slow down, she could not, as the load of supporting her family again fell on her shoulders. Bread of Life retired her husband on medical grounds later. The church seems to have no pension scheme. They pay for the rent of the home in Uyantanshi of Kitwe and purportedly gives him a 800 kwacha allowance per month. That's about $50. However, they were not carrying out fellowship visits on him to motivate him. Even members of the Phiri's family rarely visited them to check on them. They therefore increasingly turned to God for further interventions. She was later also retired from the Kitwe College of Education. The civil service in Zambia is slow to pay terminal benefits to former public servants. Their lives again spiraled back into poverty. Her husband's dementia got worse and he has physical challenges in moving about. So severe were the challenges that her husband was diagnosed with malnutrition. Though she was also dealing with her own medical issues, physical weakness, and challenges of being an unemployed breadwinner, she became his full-time nurse. On the 17th January of this year, she got again admitted into Kitwe's Central Hospital for high blood pressure and its severe complications. 9 days later, on 26th January, the Lord called her to go and rest in his higher kingdom. We very much pray to our Almighty Lord for our soul to rest in eternal peace. We are also praying to our Almighty Father in heaven above to kindly consider the well-being of his surviving spouse and children. With his beloved wife away with the Lord in the realm above, Reverend Phiri has been left without a dedicated caregiver. His children may not manage to take care of him. He needs 24 hours of good care. Without medical insurance, Medical care in Zambia is very expensive. Without the resources for his general nursing, no one better placed to take good care of him. We very much pray that our Almighty Lord will have mercy on him as his humble servant and avail him with someone and resources to take very good care of him. This has been written and read by Johnny Njovu on this 4th of February 2022.